Hello everyone! Today I'm going to be planting my first round of fall bulbs for blooms this spring. I'm on the rooftop deck and I'm only going to plant one bed, and that's that bed right there. I have had a fraught relationship with trying to successfully grow tulips, daffodils, any other spring flowers up here because the bulbs rot over the winter and into the early spring. Now I'll give you a brief overview of what I've tried over the last 4 or 5 years to grow bulbs and what hasn't worked. So the first year I grew tulips and daffodils in a bed on the front deck. I had asked at the garden center, do you think I need to cover these? They said no. The bed was it's my center raised bed, so it's about like 3 feet by 2 feet, 4 feet by 3 feet. It's the largest bed. I put tulips in there, I put daffodils in there. I don't believe any daffodils came. And then I would say like 70% of the tulips came up just fine. So I thought to myself, okay, leaving them uncovered works. So I planted tulips in the exact same spot the next fall, and I think I got 3 out of probably 100 tulips that I planted. So I said, okay, I think the issue is that they are staying too wet over the winter, because I would have some bulbs that would sprout, like I'd maybe see the green shoot come up about an inch or two, and then it would stop growing, and then I would just loosely pull on it and it would come off from the bulb, which means that it has rotted. So they were coming up, but then our springs have been very wet and cold, so the soil has just been staying consistently too wet for the bulbs and they've been rotting. Then I decided to plant bulbs in the raised beds over here and put a tarp on them, because I figured if I had a tarp on them, then it would protect it from the rain. So I did that. Only issue is that when the flowers started to grow, I had to take the tarp off. Not only so that they could get some sun, but also they were growing into the tarp and would have been smashed as they tried to grow. So when I took the tarp off, again, I had a lot of shoots. The rain and the cold weather made a lot of the bulbs rot anyways. So then last year, I put something in the beds that would lift the tarps up. I also used a greenhouse on one of them so that it could stay up, but I also took those off too soon. So, because I've had more failures than successes at growing bulbs in raised beds that have to stay outside, that's why I'm just doing one. And I'm doing that one from Cedar Planters because it comes with a greenhouse that I'm going to keep on forever, or at least until they actually get large enough where the flowers start to form. Then maybe I'll take it off. But if I can't do this by keeping the tarp on it the whole time they're growing, then I really feel like I am out of options for growing bulbs up here. Now I will be growing bulbs elsewhere. I'm going to plant some in pots, and the pots I move into our garage, which is perfect because then the soil isn't exposed to rain or snow or anything that's going to make it too wet. And then I'm also going to try planting in the ground, because you usually do have more success with bulbs when they're in the ground than in containers if you are leaving the containers out. So, having said that, we're going to see how this goes. The main problem with planting bulbs in the fall is you don't know if it's going to work until about 6 to 7 months later. But here is what I'm going to be planting. I have 3 of these bulb sets from Proven Winners. I went over these in my bulb haul, but I'll do a quick refresh. So this one is the Golden Meadow blend. There are 12 daffodils in this one. These are the ones that they sell at Home Depot, so you can probably find them there now, I would think. This is the Morning Sunrise blend of daffodils. There's 12 in here. And then this is why I really hope it works. This is the Double Sorbet blend tulips. There are also 12 in here. So I'm not going, that's 36. I'm not going too crazy with the amount of bulbs in case they rot, but I do want to try and see how it does if I keep the greenhouse on basically the entire time the bulbs are in there. So what do we have to do today? I have to empty out this bed, and I think I'm actually going to probably throw this plant waste away. I'm pretty sure there is scale covering it, so anything that's covered with some sort of pest or is diseased, that's when I throw it away versus keeping it in the garden as mulch. I think there are some Supertunia Vista Minis that I have to pull, and probably some root balls from some of the China asters in there, but basically I'm going to clean everything out and then get the bulbs planted. So let's go over and see what's happening in this raised bed. This raised bed is the only bed that I have that is not on irrigation. The main reason was when I tried to run the irrigation up, there wasn't enough water pressure to go up into the raised bed. The other beds up here are a bit lower. I could run a second line, but at least for now, since there are going to be bulbs in there, I'm actually very glad that there's no irrigation set up to it, because I am still running irrigation to the rest of the garden once in a while since there are plants still alive, but it's not as hot as it has been. The green vines that you see on the black frame, that is the Thumbergia. So I'm going to pull that, and that I actually have little pieces, you can see here, of masking tape. So the Thumbergia itself didn't do a great job winding around whatever this material might be of the bars, but the masking tape has held up just fine in rain, in the heat, and it's kept the plants growing the way that I wanted to. And then hopefully it's going to be easy to take off right now. Another thing about this bed is that this frame doesn't necessarily come with the beds. This frame is something that you get separately when you get the greenhouse. I have tried to see if what they offer fits any of my other non-cedar planters beds, and it does not, but you could make something fairly similar to this with PVC and some plastic covering. But I am going to pull all this off, and I can see, I'll take you in close to see the gross stuff that's all over it. I will pull this off, empty this out, and then get the bulbs planted. This right here has been my biggest pest issue in the garden this year. I feel like it's on almost everything except my Angelonia, that again have no problems. But from what I could find online is that these are scale egg sacs, and I have seen scale as well, like a more almost light gray scale. So if that is right, let me know for sure. And if you're looking at this and you're like, no, that's definitely something else, let me know that as well. But this is why these are going into a bag of yard waste instead of staying in my garden. Now, it's also why I'll be wearing gloves for this, because I don't feel like touching all of these egg sacs with my fingers. So I'm just going to start going in here and just trimming some back and then seeing how much I can pull off. Now, if you are in Chicago, you can do a yard waste pickup request through 311. I use the app. I think you can call as well. But for instances like this, I'll bag up the waste in just a regular, like, outdoor garbage bag. And then I put in a request, and they come and take it away. Now I'm just running my hands through to find any root balls from the China asters. Now, this may come as a surprise, but I actually don't know everything, so I just ran inside and I searched for scale and does it survive the winter? And apparently it does. Apparently they just go dormant, because I'm worried, oh, more root balls. I'm worried if there are any egg sacs in here that they will just be dormant for the winter and then come back. So what it recommended doing was in late winter, early spring next year, to apply a horticultural oil spray that will smother and kill the scale and the egg sacs. So I think that's what I'm going to do. I will have to put a reminder in my calendar, or else I will not remember to do that. If there's anything else you can think of that I should do even now, let me know. But let's go ahead and get the bulbs planted. The first thing I'll do when I'm planting bulbs is look at the planting depth, because the deeper bulbs I want to plant first. These are all 6 inches, which makes it really easy. So what I think I'm going to do, I can either do one at a time and put them down 6 inches. I think the soil's loose enough to make that pretty easy. Or I could scoop some to the side and just toss them in there and then cover it back up. No, there's not that many. I'm just going to toss these around and then bury each of them. I do not care too much about even spacing for the different types of bulbs. I just want them to live. So I will make sure that they are pointing with the roots down and the shoot up, which usually it's pretty easy to tell. There are the roots on the bottom and the shoot on the top. So I am going to try to space them, like, I don't know, roughly apart based on the type, but again, not doing anything very mathematical here. Now, for spacing, when you're doing it in containers, it really doesn't matter. In fact, I didn't even look at the spacing requirements. It's mostly if you're planting in the ground and you want whatever you're planting to naturalize, you want to give it some space. But in containers, where these are basically going to be treated as annuals, that does not matter. In fact, you should definitely follow Claus Dalby if you are interested in bulbs in containers. And he basically plants them right next to each other. If I had that many, I would, but again, I don't want to risk that many dying in here this year. Now with gardening, you can learn some interesting things about measurements. For example, these want to be placed 6 inches deep. I know that 6 inches is about the length of my glove, so when I shove them down, I just go about that length. And then I know that they should be deep enough. You know, it actually kind of feels nice to be planting bulbs right now. I was feeling a bit sad, as I tend to do, about the end of the garden season. But I don't know, it feels nice to be out here in the cooler weather, cooler than summer was, and being able to do garden work without profusely sweating or needing to stop and take breaks. If you are planting bulbs in a smaller pot and there is no potting mix in it, the easiest way to plant these is to fill your pot so that there would be about, well, probably about 7 inches left from the top, put all your bulbs in, then cover it with 6 inches of soil. It's just much easier that way, but this already has the potting soil in it. I will say things that I've learned in the past is that the daffodils do seem to be more sensitive than the tulips, so we'll see how each of these do this year. Hopefully I can get the daffodils to survive, because that would be nice, but I am expecting probably a better result from the tulips. The bulbs are planted, and if I wanted to, I could have added some sort of granular fertilizer like bulb tone as I was planting, but if I don't know if they're going to live, I don't want to waste any of my bulb tone. I'm going to save that for the pots that I keep in the garage or in the ground. I might add some fresh potting soil if I have some in a bag up here, and then we're going to put the greenhouse on. I did find this small bag of potting mix, which actually should be a pretty good amount for just covering the top of this. I'm doing this just to, you know, add a little bit of freshness to it, but also because when I took out the root balls, that did take some of the potting soil with it. So just filling this up a little bit more. I could probably put even more in here if I had it. Once I start pulling a lot of the annuals back here, I will be putting some on top of this for mulch as well as the other raised beds. So I do also want to save some room for that. I think this looks pretty good. All right, greenhouse, no pressure, but I am relying all on you to keep these alive. Again, this greenhouse doesn't normally come with a bed when you order it, but it is an accessory that you can add, which is nice because you can then find whatever size container you got, you can find the corresponding greenhouse for it. I just got this last fall, and I had kept the tulips covered for a bit, but then I did take it off so I could see the tulips, and that's when they started to rot. So what I'm going to do this year, actually let me get this on first and then I'll talk about what I'm going to do. There are ties inside here, and it will be windy up on my rooftop deck for sure, so I am going to tie these so that the greenhouse can stay secure, although it being up against the wall this year should help. Last year it was kind of more in the center of the deck near the air conditioning unit, so it didn't have as much protection. All right, we're tied and in place, and I wanted to show you something about this greenhouse. So first, just on the front, if I flip the plastic back, there's this netting, which will let some air in. I think you can do it on the sides too. Yeah, I can take this off and open a little window for it. I did utilize that because sometimes when it was really humid outside, there would be condensation in here. So if I wanted to let a little bit of air flow through, I would do that. Also, just if it was a nice day, I'd open it up so it could get some air. But for the majority of the time, this plastic is going to be closed on it. So I'm going to zip the inside up. That's already done. And then we're going to zip you up. And I can't believe I have a bed of bulbs already planted. Well, I am done planting that bed. A few other things. One, I am not adding any water right now. So there is a little bit of moisture in the potting soil just from growing plants in there throughout the season. I cannot tell you how easily my bulbs rot. So I am just leaving whatever moisture is in the soil in them. I did that last year and it worked out just fine. So that's how these are going to stay. And then once, hopefully, I start seeing some green shoots next year, I will then start to add a little bit of water. I have found, this is not scientific in any way, but I have found that if the shoots get to probably at least 4 inches tall, and then we get a lot of rain, they don't rot, but even like an inch or two, maybe 3, it can still rot from a lot of rain. So once they get tall enough and I'm comfortable, I will give them water. Now what I'm going to do for the rest of the beds up here, since I'm not planting any bulbs up here this season, is I'm going to go to the garden center in early spring, get their pre-sprouted bulbs, and then put them into my garden. Because at least that way they should be large enough that they won't rot. But like I said, I will be planting some bulbs down in my little patch of ground. And then also I am going to try planting bulbs on the garage deck along the back border with those containers. They are underneath a pergola. The pergola will have to stay slightly open in the winter because it can't hold a large amount of snow. But I'm hoping that they'll get a little extra protection, so we'll see. And I'm really excited because I have a color scheme that I think is going to be really pretty. But anyway, that's going to be everything for this video. Let me know if you have any questions, and I will see you in the next one.